All right. Well, welcome everyone to DPLA's mid-year check-in. I'm Felton Thomas. I'm the chair of DPLA and very happy to be with you today. Um, what a year this has been. It has been a crazy 6 months. And, this is an opportunity for us to kind of reflect on that time and have a conversation with our special guests to talk about how we move forward during these times. We have a full agenda, so we're going to get started here. And I want to make sure you know that we'll close with an open discussion. I'll facilitate that discussion. And so if there are questions and answers you have for the panel or just in general for DPLA, please hold on to those questions and we will get right to them. You can also share those with us online. Now I have the great pleasure of turning it over to the Executive Director of DPLA, John Brackett.
Thank you, Felton. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I have to be honest, when we set this as kind of a mid-summer check-in, we're hoping, to have a bare minimum of a couple dozen people to have a conversation with. And we've got way more than that, including a lot of folks who have been deeply involved with our work over the years and some new folks. So welcome. One housekeeping note for DPLA's note-taking purposes, we are recording this meeting. We're going to pause the recording when we get done with the spiel and lean into the Q&A. And we're not going to release the recording. Any release we do with the recording, we will coordinate with the folks who are speaking. And I guess that's, that extra layer, I guess, of housekeeping in part is reflective of the moment we're in that Felton alluded to. I've had the benefit and really felt the need personally, to be honest, like just kind of, emotionally to check in with a lot of folks across the country in recent weeks and months. Many of you are here. I don't think it's a surprise to say, I've probably heard more emotional and sort of personal sharing, frankly heard levels of, depression, fear, exhaustion. I'm sure many of you have too. I mean, I've talked to folks who are making career changes, right? In part in the context we're in. And all the more reason that I think it's so important and we're so lucky to be able to come together in this conversation. I mean, some of you here today, I met in person a couple of weeks ago in Philadelphia during ALA, and that was it was sobering to hear from folks and what we're all experiencing differently. But it was encouraging. And the goal for this is to, in part, to get to that encouragement level. I've been thinking about, the founding of DPLA and strategic planning that we've done in the past. And I have to say, looking through the notes from the first DPLA meetings 14, 15 years ago, the elimination from IMLS was not in the cards for that, right? It was not something we imagined. Tanks in the streets down the block from libraries, as we've seen in Los Angeles. US Army tanks was not in the cards that we would imagine. Troops going into museums here in Chicago and Humboldt Park and brethren cultural heritage, institutions down the street from a Chicago public library, not in the cards for us. And one of you who I just saw log in when I spoke with you recently shared a sort of desire of a space, the lack of a space to strategize, mobilize, and imagine what we need to do and how we need to adjust our work to this, cacophony of economic, political, and technological changes that's all around us. So the goal with this is to kind of give us a little bit of space for 53 minutes we have left to breathe, pause, reflect on some of what we have going on and what some of our core partners have going on, and begin to tee us up for what comes next later in the year. And with that, I am going to hand things over first off to my colleague, Dominic Bird McDevitt in the great state of Indianapolis, in the great city of Indianapolis. Don't let anyone tell you different. Who directs our director of community work, and to give an overview of something that we're launching. We're actually launching it today. I gave Dominic the challenge to have this ready to launch today, and I think we've hit it. So, uh, Dominic, over to you.
Great, thank you. So I want to share some updates from our network. And just quickly, I'll have three main updates I want to give. And I want to first just start off by sharing some important updates about DPLA's Network Council. This spring, we were finally able to have a transition in Network Council leadership. So I want to just start by thanking and acknowledging the work of Maggie Snow from Minitex, who served in her term as chair well beyond her original term and did it without a vice chair that whole time. So we're really excited by the new energy of the new team. We want to welcome our new Network Council officers, Penelope Shoemaker from the State Library of Ohio as chair, Molly Huber from Minitex as vice chair, and Gabe Galson from Temple University as secretary. Um, so, like I said, we're excited by the new energy, and I also just wanted to quickly shout out the first new initiative they've already announced, which is a series of listening sessions. The first one of which is going to be on July 23rd. So I'm gonna throw the link in there if you're interested. And I see that some of them are in this room too. So you can maybe direct questions to them in the chat if you're interested. And uh and there I see Gabe waving too. Um the next thing is I wanted to share details about our DPLA Network Summit. So this is the new name for the meeting of hubs and people involved in the cultural heritage aggregation work. And the summit name really reflects how much the event is going to be about coming together, literally and figuratively. So you can learn more about the Network Summit by going to summit.dp.la. Uh, and I'll just quickly share some of the details. The Network Summit is going to be held in Philadelphia on October 28th and 29th and hosted by Temple University. So there's a lot going on that we want to bring this community together in person for, and we're really excited by the opportunity to talk strategy and planning for the future of our work, and also just the ability to bring bring us all together in physical space for the first time in more than 5 years. And we know going into this that our biggest challenge is really just ensuring that all of the most important stakeholders are able to actually be there. So DPLA is committing to provide travel support to a designated representative from every hub. And I'm already beginning to reach out to hubs now about the travel, but and participation in the summit. But for anyone that's relevant to, you can feel free to email me directly and reach out and start the conversation as well. So like I said, summit.dp.la. We have a shortcut for that, but I'll throw it in the chat as well. And then finally, like John was alluding to, we have a major new announcement that we're just rolling out today. This is the launch of our DPLA Network Grants program. So I'm going to share a little bit about that. We first announced in the January kickoff meeting for this year that DPLA is going to be redistributing grant funding to advance the work of our network. And we see this as a way to help the network either tackle a longstanding issue or develop new projects. But all of this is with an emphasis on work that will have outcomes that will impact the work, the cultural heritage program in some way. So this could include projects like improving the metadata harvesting workflows or developing new tools such as digital curation tools, or addressing other needs of the network as you see it. And we're going to welcome proposals from broadly the DPLA or cultural heritage community at any level, whether it's from a DPLA hub explicitly, or institutions, individuals, or groups of those. And right now, the proposal can still be in early stages. So we are today opening the call, and we'll be accepting proposals, which will be essentially an expression of interest. It's a very lightweight, easy application form. And then over the fall, our grants committee will review the ideas and invite selected applicants to develop a full proposal. So I'm gonna send that link too, and you're welcome to look at our grants page on our website, and there's the application form linked there. The deadline for this initial application is August 7th, and we're aiming to announce the funded projects at the Network Summit, so at the end of October. And you're welcome to email me if you're interested in learning more or want to talk more about an idea you have. And also, I just want to thank the our grants committee for the work that they've done. They provided input that got us to this point, and they're going to be helping us throughout the rest of the year in determining the criteria for the grants and reviewing proposals. And with that, we can have questions at the end. I'll turn it back over to John.
Thanks, Dominic, and thanks for everyone that's been involved with helping us craft what you're seeing now. You know, we've had a variety of different folks give feedback from that committee and elsewhere, and the decisions. I think we're really excited to learn from what comes through this, and also to be part of the conversation. In my experience, the conversation of reviewing these proposals will with partners will help all of us as well. I am going to warm up the seat here now for my friend and colleague John Wilkin. As some of you may have seen, last month, after feeding a project for over a decade, where we announced plan to hand off what's now our part of the Palace project, to live fully within Lyrasis. And just to give a little bit of credit and history, the idea of what now has become Palace was seeded with thanks to IMLS. And so just to put a marker down on key institutions that we care about and are concerned about, IMLS gave a grant to NYPL that DPLA then became part of back in 2012. And the short version is we've grown and adapted through the work. Lyrasis has been a partner with us in growing what is now Palace. First, starting about 7 years ago, and over the last 5 years, we launched Palace together. And I guess this is my point also, just to put a couple markers down. Knight Foundation was really key in launching Palace and getting us to that level and allowing us to solidify that partnership and all the progress that John's going to share. MacArthur Foundation as well for DPLA has really provided key support as we've grown and nurtured that work. And Sloan Foundation provided the first funds for DPLA in this work and has been a champion throughout. So it feels, we were able to share this at eBooks Friday in Philadelphia last month. And Michael from Lyrasis and I were there, and it really did feel like we were launching a thing. I used the metaphor with the team today of pushing one of those boats off into the pond from DPLA. It was the first event I've been to where Palace was being discussed without anyone giving a preamble about what Palace is and what the Palace project is. It was sort of the currency walking into the room was that we have built a key infrastructure for libraries and for library readers. And here comes my cat with a little felt mouse just on time. And it's hit the mainstream. And for DPLA, it really felt like the right time for us to launch, step away. We have 100% confidence in our partners to take this important project to the next level. And with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to my friend John.
Thank you, John. So I think we could probably spend John asked me to talk for 10 minutes about an update on Palace, and we could spend the entire time acknowledging everybody who helped make this what it is today, so thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing that, John, and all those supporters. Knight has been tremendous. IMLS, Sloan, MacArthur. It's just been great. But I also want to thank John and DPLA because without the partnership that we have, we couldn't have done what we've done. And so I'll return to that in just a moment. It is nice to see so many friends here, so many collaborators and partners. But one person I want to call out and have him say hi is Michael Atwood. John mentioned him a moment ago. Michael is my guy for Palace. He's the senior director of ebook efforts at Lyrasis, and he leads Palace within Lyrasis. So, Michael, can you say hi?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, John. Hi, my name is Michael Atwood, as John mentioned. Thank you.
We got a bunch of people here, Micah May, other people from Lyrasis. Probably don't have time for all that, but I suspect everybody here knows what Palace is, but I should say a word about it first. In the simplest terms, it's an ebook platform, but it's important to note that we've been successful in ensuring that Palace provides access to a really, really broad array of published literature, including content that comes from libraries, the content that libraries bring to the platform. And then we're working industriously to help Palace serve as a library-owned platform, trying to get, for example, better licensing, recapture the notion of book ownership, the doctrine of first sale. We're really trying to use this as a platform to advance the interests of libraries. Quickly on an update, it's the application and the platform are robust and they're growing. We now have over 700 libraries on Palace now. There have been over 500 checkouts in Palace, but to give you a sense of the growth, over 200,000 of those have happened in 2025 so far. So we're in that hockey stick kind of growth there too. Almost $12 million in content sales. In short, we are really well established and thriving. I think when we embarked on this journey with DPLA in 2020, to be frank, we were fueled more by hope than optimism, but Palace was the right idea and it's addressing the right problems. The challenges were audacious. And I want to say here again that we couldn't have succeeded without the partnership between DPLA and Lyrasis. DPLA as a national thought leader galvanized the community, and I can't understate the importance of that. Lyrasis is a library-run enterprise dedicated to operational excellence and sustainability, focused on the technology and the business. DPLA and Lyrasis work together. We work to complement each other, and that's how we've made what we've made possible today succeed. So John mentioned the announcement that you saw, and I want to talk about that for just a moment. Palace Marketplace has transitioned from DPLA to Lyrasis. The move is significant. It means that the last piece of operational management moves to Lyrasis. That's not the end of the partnership between Lyrasis and DPLA. I think with John Bracken's leadership, DPLA can do things that Lyrasis couldn't or shouldn't do. I think the sorts of things that John was talking about in the opening here are important to us, and we can use Palace as a vehicle for trying to advance our interests in that more complicated space. But we'll continue to collaborate around those ideas. It does mean that Palace is in good hands with Lyrasis, and I want to make sure that you know I'm committed to Lyrasis sustaining and growing Palace in ways that serve libraries. I'm making that commitment to the community, and I have our board support. It's very important. So I want to bring things to a close. I want to thank John again at this juncture and remind everybody that Palace exists for us, I'm a librarian, for our libraries, to advance the interests of our libraries and our users. And I hope that we, the community, can work together to get the best licensing models, the right kind of integration, the sorts of functionality we need in libraries, bringing content together in meaningful and unified ways. We need your participation. We need the participation of the community to make Palace realize its potential. And I look forward to hearing from all of you and working on behalf of the community. So, John, I hope that's helpful as an update. We're doing well, and we're doing well in part because of the partnership with you. Thanks.
Thanks so much, John. And I just to add one of the many cooks and authors of what we've built together. I want to shout out. You mentioned him, Micah May, our our recently former colleague and your now colleague, and Micah's fingerprints. I mean, that the initial grant I mentioned at NYPL, Micah was the lead on that. Micah pitched me on that when I was foundation program officer. Is how I first met him, and it wouldn't exist without Micah's leadership and steadfastness and ability to really, be determined and iterative in building what's now a real thing that exists in the world that people need and use. So thanks, and hopefully some combination of the three of you can stick around in case there are questions at the end of the day.
You betcha.
And I bet. All right, this is great because we are churning along. I want to have maximize time for the conversation when we get to end. So one of the projects we announced last week that I want to add some color to today is a series of roundtables, a fall series of roundtable discussions that we're doing. And I guess I'll start by just saying many of back in at the end of last year and the first maybe 2.5 weeks of 2025, we were planning on holding DPLA Fest, which is many have been there in the past. It's a big celebratory thing. Chicago Public Libraries have hosted many instances of it in their fabulous auditorium at Harold Washington Library, 350 people, big celebratory keynotes. And as you can imagine, as the winter and spring unfolded, it became clear to us and from talking to many of you that we were not in a moment for celebration or broad, exciting explorations. And in fact, both, I heard feedback around budget feedbacks and travel budgets being eliminated, positions being at risk. Also, frankly, just emotional health, right? And it was really hard to imagine building something big, new, and exciting at a moment when we were facing such an onslaught of change, of disruption, of attacks in many sense. So, one way to sort of help figure out a path forward, as I alluded to, had lots of conversations. Many of you were on the hearing end of a lot of those conversations. I'm looking at James, right? Jenny and Chris Brown are two of the people that would the head of those calls. They're both right here, and really heard a level of two things. One, resonating. Yes, it's exhausting. A lot of you were much deeper in the variety of different contexts across the country that people were facing, and second, a desire and sort of an experience that coming together, even in small groups, and being able to be in community meant a lot, right? And some of us will experience that this February when Knight Foundation gathered many of us in Miami. Kathy, whom you'll hear from later, mirrored this back to me, saying it's important to vent and validate, which is something I've been stealing. So where did that take us? So what we've decided to do was, rather than one big giant thing, to do a series of small, meaning about 24 folks, intentional conversations over the course of the fall. Each one is being conceived of in partnership with one or more place-based institutions, libraries. And you're going to hear from 4 of the ones that we're developing with. And I should say, since we announced this idea a couple weeks ago, one is Ohio has been added to the list, and we're talking about adding a 5th one. And the goal really is, one, to provide that space to come together. That's part, but also really to create that space that I alluded to earlier that was missing, to allow us to strategize, imagine, and mobilize in the midst of these series of pressures and really even attacks. One theme, one benefit from having these conversations is I've been able to hear, themes pop up with many of you, and this notion of what is access and what is access if not, what does the work of providing access to knowledge mean in the current environment for our institutions? How do we preserve and apply, lessons from history? Um, um, what are the opportunities that we have that we didn't have before? And I should say, it's not just an abstract conversation exercise. One, we will share out the insights that we hear from each of these conversations. Two, we plan to have a culmination in Q1 where we report out what we hear. And three, as you can see, DPLA, as we evolve and as we imagine what we want to do next, we're seeing this, and the DPLA board will be at the table for each of these members of the DPLA board to imagine how DPLA, as a small nonprofit organization focused on digital access, can be part of the answer, and what can we contribute to what we need to build together going forward. All this is information. You're going to hear these ideas in real time. Where this is the first time this group is gathering to explore it, so we're still developing it. You're invited. I think we have a landing page now, the roundtables.dp.la, that Dominic or Suzanne will pop in there. We'll keep the information there. If you're interested in hearing more, let us know. And we'll be sharing more actually about the funding that's going to allow us to do this work and to make sure folks are able to come to these tables. With that, I wanted to tap into this amazing group of partners that we've formed. And we've listed them on the agenda in alphabetical order, but if she's game for it, Caitlin, since you're the first, Charlotte Mecklenburg is the first one out of the gate coming up in September. It's real time for us. Caitlin's the interim library director in Charlotte Mecklenburg, which is a library near and dear to my and DPLA's hearts. I'm excited. We're going to kick these meetings off with Caitlin and her team in September. And I guess, my prompt to you, Caitlin, is, what brings you to the table, and what do you hope to achieve?
Thanks, John. Yeah, I just couldn't help but leapfrog the other guys. As soon as I heard the dates they were thinking about, I made sure to get on the calendar just a little bit sooner so that we could be the first one. No, we're really excited to be part of this and serve as a host city in this. It's interesting because John and I talked yesterday, and I kind of said to him, like, where are we landing on the topic? Because as he and I have had conversations, it's kind of flowed in a lot of different ways, both very narrow and a little bit broader. And really what it's coming down to is helping us as we think about
Man, what a cliffhanger.
I thought it was
All right,
just
well-
me. Thank you, John.
What a cliffhanger. Okay, maybe what I will do is, while we wait to hear where Caitlin was going to bring us, and I know they're madly doing construction at Charlotte Mecklenburg as they get ready to open their brand new main branch, I will throw it over to my neighbor and my main librarian, Chris Brown, here in Chicago, to maybe kick us off. And I also, while I pass it to you, Chris, I will also acknowledge that my branch manager, Marcus, is here, and I want to give a shout out to the best branch manager in Chicago, the best branch, Blackstone.
Oh, Marcus
Regional.
is here.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
my neighborhood librarian is here. But Chris, you're my neighborhood librarian too. What's bringing you to the table for this exploration?
Yeah, I think we've been talking about what is happening at this time and place, and what does the federal landscape look like right now, and what's the implication for the archival work that we're doing. And as we're seeing less of that resource from IMLS and that kind of question mark, for the folks that are really kind of invested in our inclusive, history and, collecting more representative archives, which we've been doing in Chicago. We have a Mellon Foundation grant to digitize our Vivian Harsh archives. We've been doing a lot with our, collections around our Mexican community. And just really concerned that in this moment, how are we going to sort of navigate not being able to maybe turn to that federal resourcing for direction or agenda setting or budgets, and how big large city libraries right now, I think they have an opportunity and a little bit of a charge, because we have maybe a little bit more room to be committed to the diversity of our communities, and that we can play an important role right now with the archives and the agendas that we're setting. And then on the other hand, thinking about maybe more of those rural libraries and those cities or states where it's more complicated to really invest in archives and collections that are being inclusive of our entire country. And so I really want to make sure that we're convening and sort of understanding, like, what was at play? Like, what was at play with what IMLS was funding? Like, I don't even have a really good insight into that myself. Like, are there archival collections that have now been put into jeopardy that we need to start thinking about our collective network in doing what we can to fulfill our mission? And so I'm interested in that kind of question about how has IMLS and their question mark kind of maybe put some of these projects and archives into jeopardy. I'm interested in, like, our collective opportunity right now to do this important work. And I think also having those rural small libraries at the table too, to think about, like, how do we support them right now? Like, what's happening in those parts of our country and those important historical collections. I think I also mentioned to John that right now, I think digital collections are more important than ever, because we do have parts of our country that it's not going to be politically okay to build out those histories and that documentation. And so I'm really appreciative of John and DPLA convening us right now, because I think there's more to talk about in relationship to DPLA's value in this moment in time. And so I hope you'll be joining us in Chicago. We have some incredible neighborhoods picked out to have you come in and visit and convene and have some incredible conversations.
I was happy to see. This is the updated EZ.
Maybe someone can mute.
spec.
I can't tell. I can't recognize the voice. There we go. Caitlin, I think you're back. Thanks, Chris.
I am back, and I'm on my phone because I lost my internet. I'm sorry, y'all.
When you froze, Caitlin, I explained how we're excited about the new main in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, and that your internet outage might be tied to the exciting new infrastructure that you're building downtown.
I wish it was. I'm home congestion today, and my home internet is apparently not as reliable as library internet, so I apologize, y'all. Yes, so as we prepare for opening new main library, a major component of it is our cultural collections, which we are trying to work on digitization and capturing some of the underserved areas of community archiving in preparation to make those voices and faces heard and seen. And so this is the moment when we're trying to think about how do we pull together the community, gain that trust, have them see themselves in this new bright, shiny building, and make it really a library for the community. And then I can't help but say, Chris, I absolutely agree with you. And it's something that I've been been wrestling with both contexts of this work as well as in other contexts around advocacy and funding and education, it is very much about what is the role of larger, more protected institutions when we have a lot of other libraries and community partners that are on shaky ground. What is our role? And we're pushing into help in the area of community archiving and digital access in all sorts of different things. And so I'm just very excited. We are working on our plans for the convening, but I am looking forward to giving y'all a sneak peek of the steel, which is up in the air for the new main library, which is coming in just about a year and a half. So thank you. Sorry to be so scattered, and I appreciate your patience.
Not at all. And I'm excited to kick things off in Charlotte and North Carolina. And as we talked a little bit, also the one meeting we have set in the South is in Charlotte. And so it's an opportunity, I think, to capture some voices and experience, which we know are particularly germane and kind of at the center of a lot of our work right now. I'm going to tag my colleague, Ben Lee from the University of Washington iSchool. And also, so Ben, we've been able to work with him at DPLA for a couple of years, beginning some early explorations around AI. Ben's starting a new lab at UW called the Lab for Computing Cultural Heritage, the name of which alone should tell you a little bit why we're excited to have this conversation together in Seattle with the university. And I don't know if Tom Fay's here, but we're excited to involve all the different partners in and around the Pacific Northwest. Ben, tagging you.
Thanks, John, for the introduction. Appreciate it. It's great to be here and great to see so many familiar faces. So I think we're building on what has already been said here. And as Chris said, I think we recognize the importance of digital collections at this time in particular. I think my own perspective is one, actually, I'm in an information school, work a lot with the MLIS program, and my research is grounded in library and information science. But I recognize I'm a little bit coming from a different vantage point here, having been trained more on the computer science side of things. So I think the topic that we're really interested in with this roundtable is really understanding what kinds of opportunities there are to improve digital access, thinking about technology, in particular topics like AI, as John said, as one place to sort of ground these conversations and look toward potential futures here. I've been fortunate to be in the conversation in these rooms, I guess now for the past couple of years through the library leaders conferences and many conversations that I've had in small groups or individually with a number of you. And from that work, we've identified a number of places where we think that there are opportunities for real interventions using AI for understanding, opportunities for improving access, for public programming and public engagement, and also on the internal staff-facing side of things. And so with this conversation, we're really hoping to take forward those kinds of lessons that we've learned from these conversations and figure out ways of bringing them into real practice, trying to understand how at this time, of course, which is difficult in so many ways, there's this added layer of AI being everywhere in the conversations and in the ether. And so what does it look like to try to strip away a lot of this noise, a lot of these ideas around taking these technologies and applying them where we see fit, and instead grounding these in the real questions and the real opportunities that libraries have to center the conversations and also to have impact along the values that libraries and public libraries hold so dear. And so our goal is to understand what it looks like to bring these kinds of open source or free to use technologies to libraries, be able to build staff capacity and staff training through these kinds of opportunities as well, and move the conversation forward. Really excited that Tom Fay, who I see here, is going to be a part of this, in Seattle Public as well. We're really excited for what you all will bring, and we're really excited about a conversation that'll be librarians, technologists, and others at the table to come together and really try to continue to carve out space to have conversations that we've built upon from Miami these past couple of years in so many Zoom calls. So really excited for it. John, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you, but thank you.
Thanks. And I'll just acknowledge, those of you that have engaged with Ben over the last year and a half, and I know some of you have, Ben's been engaged in the project with us to help public libraries in particular begin to think about AI strategies and engagement. So that sort of informs this a bit. Our newest collaborator in this conversation, Kathy Zappitello, who many of you know from Conneaut Public Library in Ohio. And I guess I just do want to own how I've met Kathy, that one of the first co-conspirators as we had this conversation. I reached out to Jenny Garner, our friend who's here in my feed right above Kathy, to really talk. So, Jenny in North Liberty, right? Am I right? North Liberty? I always get it wrong. In North Liberty, Iowa, has been one of my go-tos. I wanted to make sure, as we developed these, wanted to make sure we were conscious and sensitive to the particular challenges and opportunities in rural libraries and that rural library leaders are facing. And the first person she mentioned to connect was with Kathy. I literally ran into Kathy on the street at ALA, and we've been plotting since. And so the short version is, we're building towards near the end of this process a conversation centered in Ohio. As all of you know, we've got some fabulous partners in and around Ohio. I'll name check a couple of you in a minute, but Kathy, what brings you to the table and what are you hoping to accomplish, and how are you feeling about the state of the world?
Oh, I'm so happy to be here today because I'm feeling much better. And that's that vent and validate, and it's, it was wonderful to run into John and have Jenny connect us because that's part of it, right? Like, am I crazy? Am I seeing what's going on? Right. It's that venting and validating. And so John allowed me to do that. Thank you. Before I say what I'm going to say, I was listening and taking notes, and the thing that I'm writing down is community and framework. And that really speaks to why I'm here and how that's changing. And, Chris, you had talked about, how larger, urban libraries have a charge. And so, there's a charge in rural libraries too. And what's happening is, it's hard to facilitate leadership in that unknown landscape, right? And we have to reconcile that, and our patrons have to reconcile that we have elected leaders that are building a different community with a different framework for funding and functionality. And, I am also the lead for the IMLS funded ARSL, Association for Rural and Small Libraries Leadership Institute. And so as a leader in my small library, as a leader of 30-member cohort, I'm watching this change in real life. And I almost feel like, my skills and what we're teaching aren't the skills that we need, and maybe not the right conversations that we need to have. And so that's why I'm here, is to really kind of peel back some of that and to get, dare I say, a little raw in what we're talking about. And really kind of, when I think even about community, in a rural community, the building of a library was the very first thing, but we're watching this get dismantled in these pockets of, I don't need it, or it's not necessary to me. But again, listening to Chris talk, when I think about my own archival room and what is in jeopardy in one small library in a corner of Ohio, I'm just very happy to be here.
Before I hand it over to our moderator, Felton, to take us on, I pass it from one Ohio person to another. I want to also just acknowledge and thank, I think she's still here, Pam Hickson Stevenson, who directs Akron's Summit Library, and was the first person I called after I talked to Kathy, and has been a really strong leader at Akron and in Northeast Ohio. And if I'm not spilling any news, Pam is also, retiring later this fall. And I'm excited to be able to have this meeting in Ohio. And then hopefully Pam, either with her citizen hat on or her library director hat on, will be part of that conversation. And Akron's is a library that has meant a lot to me and inspired me over the years. So, okay, Felton, back to you.